Hey guys, it's Alec Torelli, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the longest break I've ever taken in my poker career. It's been now 4 months since I've played a single hand of poker. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why that break came about, some of the things I think are, what should be the goal of a poker player, and a little bit about work-life balance and sort of how I've approached my career and some of the different ways the different phases I've gone through in my career as a professional poker player. So first off, this 4-month break, right? I never intended to take this much time off of poker. I was actually planning on going to the World Series of Poker. I was planning on coming to Italy for like a month or so, and then going back to Vegas for the World Series and dip back into the poker industry and play a lot of poker then. Something ended up happening, and I ended up not going to Vegas. That's just how life is. And I ended up taking the entire summer off from poker. I actually wrote a blog about this, my goals for the summer of 2016, and you could read that here below this video as well, or check it out on my blog. Anyway, so it ended up being a 4-month break, which is the longest time I've ever gone. And looking back on the beginning of my career, just my time coming up as a poker player, when I played 60, 70, 80 hours a week, or even in my time in Macau, I remember looking at my schedule and I logged like 92 hours 1 week in Macau. All the games were above 5K, 10K as well. So it's like, I had these periods in my life where poker was just the only thing on my mind. It was like super intense. And then periods where I've had a little bit more break. So I guess in the beginning of my career, poker was 100% of pretty much what I did. It was like just like a normal job or a normal passion. It was just 100% all poker. And then as I've evolved throughout my career, now I'm married, I do a lot of other things. I have an online business. I travel a lot more. I'm with my wife, and my life's become a little bit more dynamic. I'm doing coaching, and I have a brand, making YouTube videos. I've had to compartmentalize poker a little bit more, right? So this is something that's been like a new struggle for me. For the first 10 years, or even the first 5-6 years, it's been like 100% poker with no other distractions. I was young and single, no responsibilities, and I could just dedicate 100% of my life to whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. So this ended up resulting in me playing like 40, 50, 60 hours a week all the time. I remember actually my first break from poker, the first time I took a week off, was when I was 20. I was in Australia, and I actually remember leaving my laptop in Australia to go backpacking for a week with a friend of mine in the Gold Coast. And I remember that was the first week I ever took off from poker. That was like 4 years after I started playing. So I was always obsessed with the game and always dedicated an extraordinary amount of time to it. And then as I progressed, I slowly started, I had a lot of other interests. I did a triathlon. I went to live in Italy. I did random stuff, I went to take courses at a university. I learned to make gelato at the Gelato University in Bologna in Italy. There's just a lot of different things that sort of took me away from poker. And if I was going to dedicate myself to learning this other activity, I had to find a way to balance poker out. So that's always been a struggle for me. But this 4-month break is by far the longest I've ever taken. And I guess I learned a little bit during this time off, right? I sort of realized that the more time I'm taking off from poker, the more I'm allowing myself to pursue things that I otherwise have repressed, because to compete at the highest level in poker, to play the biggest games in the world, or play in Macau, or travel the circuit professionally full time, it's really not a part-time job, right? I sort of view playing poker professionally, I've always treated myself as a poker professional like I would have treated myself had I been a professional tennis player or professional athlete. I actually, took a lot of parallels from tennis and tried to apply them to poker. They're very similar games. And so if you think about that analogy, it's very hard to be a professional athlete and compete with the best in the world, and furthermore try and win against the best in the world if you're just gonna half-ass it. It's just not, it doesn't really work that way. And so, especially during my time in Macau, I really put everything else in my life aside. My super supportive wife, I'm super lucky I had the opportunity to do that. I'm very supportive friends and colleagues and whatever that allowed me to be in that situation as well. And it just worked out where 60, 70 hours a week I was either playing poker, talking about poker with other players that I think are the best in the world, and studying poker, and it was just all immersive, right? So that allowed me to excel and compete and win at an extremely high level. And so that's really what you have to do to win, right? You pretty much have to be 100% all in on your poker career to be at the highest level. It should be kind of obvious, right? It's obvious in other industries. I think maybe sometimes the inclination is to take competition at the highest level in poker a little bit for granted and just assume like, oh, these people have sick lives, they could like just play poker for a living, no big deal, show up at the casino and whatever. And I think the tendency to do that is because when like amateurs approach poker, they do it as a recreational hobby, so they view poker with this sort of sense of lust, right, or like fantasy, where it's like, oh, I could just show up to the casino during my leisure time away from work, like an amateur plays poker away from work, and then they go to the casino and it's like, oh, it must be so nice to just get to do this every day. And I understand the thought pattern, and I understand where people are going with it, and I think it less has to do with playing poker and more has to do with the fact that people fantasize about doing a leisure activity as a job, because it's like their pleasure. If they could indulge in their pleasure full time, like for an amateur at poker, it would be such a dream for them, right? And so, but it's like that for everyone. Like, I'm sure a lot of professional poker players, I mean, while they're very grateful and love their job, would be like, oh my God, it'd be so nice to just be away from my work all the time, right? Sort of the same thing with traveling and vacation, right? You might go on vacation to LA, but for the people that live in LA, they're like, oh my God, I want to go to vacation to wherever you live, right? It's not about the physical destination or the physical work that you're involved in. It's about like the state of mind that you're in when you're indulging in that activity. So I think it's easy for people to like misunderstand what it takes to really compete at the highest levels in poker. And from my experience and the experience of the people that I respect and have seen excel at the highest levels in the industry, it's very much like a job. And I'm not gonna like sit here and complain about the life of a professional poker player. I think it's one of the best that you can have, frankly, and I'm super grateful every day for like being in between a place, like just in a marriage of where the stars aligned, that have allowed me to do this. So it's all great, but it does take a lot, and it does take a lot out of you, and it's pretty much all you can do if you really want to exceed at the highest levels. So I think as I've progressed throughout my poker career, I've like appreciated more the idea, and this has sort of become an evolution of what my goal has been as a professional poker player, and some of the things I work with a lot of my clients. A lot of my clients come to me and some of them want to be professional poker players, they're aspiring pros. A lot of them are like very successful businessmen that like families, they have kids, and they're like, they would never trade their job for poker. They just want to be better at their hobby, right? So I always feel like the latter, the people that are allowed to play, are in a great spot. And it sort of is in line with my goal, which is this. I think as a professional poker player, I think you want to be able to play when you want. You don't want to have to play. And I think even if you're a professional poker player, you still aspire to that level of success or that lifestyle, right? So even if you're a professional and you choose to play every single day of your life, it's different being in a position of choice or empowerment by choosing to play rather than having to pay rent or to pay for the bills or whatever it is. So I think if you're in a spot in poker where you can choose to play, that's very, very empowering, and it makes the times that you play and makes your success while playing much, much better, right? It makes me much more fulfilled and excited every time I'm at the table. So having these 4 months off really gave me a lot of respect for that adage. Now I'm like thinking, wow, I'm so excited. And now in November, I'm gonna be going to play 3 different stops on Poker Night in America in 3 different states. Plus I'm gonna be hitting Vegas and LA, where I'm gonna be coaching and playing some poker there as well. So I'm gonna be doing a lot of poker in November, and I'm gonna be transitioning back from some of the things I've been doing in the last couple months, working on my online business, working on making content, writing a lot more, spending more time with family, to essentially being a professional poker player again. And even though I've always feel like, I'm still a professional poker player, I still identify with that, I'm actually gonna be competing on the professional level again coming up. So dipping in and out of that industry made me being able to dip in and out of being a professional made me have a lot more appreciation for the idea that I'm in a spot where I'm like, I can play, and I can compete on a level that I want, but I don't have to play. And I think that's like the ultimate goal of people, and I think people should strive for that, whether they're professionals or not professionals. And that's just like a work-life balance that I think is very, very valuable. So why have I sort of taken this transition? Like, why have I decided that I'm not going to play 100% full time? Am I burnt out from poker? Am I like tired? Am I feel like I'm beyond my prime or anything like that? The answer to all those questions is no. I think with the times that I do commit myself to playing at an elite level, I feel like I could reach that point again. And I feel like that's very, very comforting, and it takes a lot of work and effort, but I feel like if that's what I want to do and I want to compete on that level, I'm still in a spot where I could do that, right? I'm not even 30 years old, and poker's not a game where you like necessarily depreciate until maybe your late 50s, 60s. I don't know. I mean, like your mental capacity is very strong, and that's really what you need. Also your physical stamina, but those things are good in your 30s. It's not like soccer where you're stuck. But at the same time, I feel like I always think about a quote that Mark Cuban said, which is follow your effort. And in the beginning of my poker career, I followed my effort. I played poker all the time. It's all I did, and I was very successful at it. But like at some point in the middle of my poker career, I felt like I was playing poker, but like I had to play, and I was like compulsed to play, even though it wasn't necessarily what I wanted to be doing. And I feel like the times that I've pushed myself to play, when I haven't really it hasn't been my number one calling, my number one activity that I've wanted to do, there's this friction there. And anytime there's poker's very competitive. It's very hard to win at the highest levels. And if it's not exactly where you feel like you need to be as a person, then I feel like it's very hard to compete at that level, right? I feel like it has to be the number one thing in your life that you want to do in order to compete. So one of the challenges for me was accepting that poker is a part of my life, it's not my entire life. And because I defined so much with being a poker player, and because other people viewed me as such and respected me for that, and they sort of expected that of me, that I was always going to be competing and always going to be playing, and I was always going to be traveling the circuit or whatever, some sort of me as a younger person especially, not that I'm old now, but in the beginning of my career, I certainly felt like that pressure to conform to that. Whereas now I'm realizing a lot more that for me personally, I do a lot better in poker when it's a part of my life, it's not my whole life, right? Because I feel like the other parts of my life that are neglected when I'm playing poker full time, all the time, for a long period of time, I sort of feel like a hamster on a wheel, right? I sort of feel like I've crossed the threshold and played more poker than I, deep down in my spirit felt like I should. I feel like I'm just sacrificing other parts of my character development, my personality, and my other needs in my life that I'm not meeting, and I'm ultimately pushing things aside that are deeply important to me to play more poker. At that point, I really feel like that hamster on a wheel sensation, and I just sort of feel like my wheels are spinning and I'm not going anywhere, and that creates a lot of stress and inner conflict, and then I just feel like my poker play deteriorates and then bad things happen. So the first thing I think for a lot of people is they ask a lot about how much poker they should play and what's the ideal amount of time. And I think for me personally, and I've noticed this in coaching other people and seeing a lot of my other colleagues that have completely different personalities than me, is first being aware of yourself and what your limitations are, and then obeying that. And serving that, right? And if there's other parts of you that are important to do other things, then use the freedom that poker gives you to allow yourself to do that, right? And I think meeting those other needs in my life has made me a much, much better poker player, because the times that I dedicate to poker, I'm in it. I'm 100% present. It's where I want to be, and that's really where the magic happens. So a little bit more why I don't play full time is and I wrote an article about this. I can link it below this video. It was inspired by a comment or actually an article that Ray first wrote on Quora about the comparisons between poker and life. And one of the things he said that was brilliant is one of the big takeaways from the article was that poker is a zero-sum game, and life is not. And I really feel like when I really reflected on that, it made me really think about a lot of, it summed up a lot of my approach and some of my conflict with playing poker 100% of my time, full time, that I just feel like my other needs weren't being met. And I think when I look at how poker functions as a game, it being zero sum, meaning that just nothing is created or produced from your result of playing poker, I feel like that always leaves me a little bit not fulfilled, right? Even though it's allowed me to have a lot of things in my life, a lot of freedom, a lot of resources. At the end of the day, it's just something is missing. And life is completely opposite. It's not a zero-sum game. You could create, build things and help other people, and that's been very fulfilling for me. So I think that's really allowed me to realize that I need to have more of a balance, and it's something that I've strived for more in the future. So I think knowing yourself, knowing what things stimulate you, and being more aware of your energies, and not really apologizing for that or forcing it too much is the best way to go. And I've noticed that the times that I've followed my effort is really when the best things have happened to me in my career. Hope you took something away from it. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please subscribe to my channel, putting out a lot more content. And if you guys have questions or subjects you'd like me to cover, please leave me a comment or get in touch with me on social media or my website, anywhere, and put out more content for you guys soon. Thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Cheers.